All right, welcome back, podcast friends and YouTube goers and wherever else you're watching this. And what you did not see right before this whole thing started, all three people on this podcast right now actually stepped over the back of our chairs before we had a seat. Mm-hmm. It's just so we could be in the mood for what we're talking about, which you would think was Star Trek, but you're close.
It was tough to do. I almost injured my pelvis.
Well, you know what? I mean, Joe, for us, you know, we live in a world where the real and the unreal live side by side. So you could be making that up. You know, you could be telling us the truth.
You don't know. You'll find out at the end of the episode, though.
What it is, guys, is you have to enter a world of both truth and deception.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for those of you who stuck with us through that explanation, on this program, very early on and throughout it, I feel like no matter which three of us, what combination of us was on this, at some point or another, we were referencing beyond belief, fact or fiction at random times, and I can't think of a better way for us in a penultimate episode here, because this is the episode before the finale of this whole thing that we're doing. Mm-hmm. But I can't think of a better way than to introduce a property that just touches on so many different elements of like our childhood, but also, you know, appeals to the best of every one of us. I mean, this is one of the most bizarre properties that I think has ever come about in like the history of nerddom. But I don't know, guys. What do you think?
It's one of those things where like it's the cornerstone, like odd, like 90s timepiece, right? Where this seems to be like kind of the end of the America's Most Wanted / Rescue 911 era, where we're getting these odd reenactments made, and it doesn't matter how many times you bring the show back, what they refuse to change, whether this is for financial reasons or the sake of tradition, is hiring people who can act. There's just no need for that.
Well, going back to this, is that back during those days, some of these accounts no one would ever know unless somebody told you. This came about during the early nascent internet age, when people might be able to share some information or run a really terrible GeoCities page that might give away some of the spoilers. But you had to guess, and the mystery was still there. And the best part is that the source material that it's pulled from isn't widely known or published, and it wasn't at the time, and even to this day it's not. So if you to catch these episodes today, unless you'd seen them before, there's still a good amount of guessing to be done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's important to take people back to this era. Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction begins in 1997. We'll just go right into the technical nerd stuff for a moment. So its original run is from 97 to 2002. It does come back, though, in 2021, and I think even up until 2024. It might still be running now, I'm not sure, but what it's doing is running in Germany for a station called RTL2, and I have never seen any of that stuff. Everything that I saw with this is the early stuff. It's the original run.
Is it still like one of the two original hosts that we had here, one of the two old hosts?
Yeah.
Do they have someone new? Okay.
Oh yeah. Still has Jonathan Frakes. He's still doing his thing, you know. So, but yeah, Joe, to your point, this has long been hosted by Jonathan Frakes of Star Trek fame or infamy, depending on your point of view, otherwise known as Commander Riker. And it is such an insane get for a TV show like this to have him, you know, really be at the source of it. But he wasn't the original host. The original host was actually James Brolin, otherwise known as Josh Brolin's dad. Yep. And man, he really encapsulates old man really well in that first season.
Amco.
Papa Thanos. Mm-hmm.
Double A MCO, if anyone remembers.
Yeah. You're not the only one cursed with arthritis and bone loss. But what I think the craziest get for this show, which Nate might agree with, and Joe, maybe this extends to you, is who it's narrated by in the original seasons.
Oh,
because,
of course.
I mean, who knew the name Don LaFontaine? I mean, just off the top of their head.
Well, I mean, we're children of, like, you know, the 80s and 90s, so we watched movie trailers. We knew the guy.
Paula Sela is a real Geico customer, not an actor. So to help tell her story, we hired that announcer guy from the movies.
When the storm hit, both our cars were totally underwater.
In a world where both of our cars were totally underwater.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
In a world where you don't know what's true and what's not. And one man will guide you through the stories of tonight. You just know
what it was is that with Don LaFontaine is that you knew the voice, but nobody cared who it was by. He was just part of all of these things. Those kind of behind-the-scenes things weren't really talked about until later, because there were about, at the time, there's probably 3 or 4 guys that were really big into that. And nowadays they go, usually it's narration-free unless they think the movie's too confusing for an audience to pick up on. But that was such a huge part of it growing up. So to get him in there, and the thing is that he was able in the series to advertise himself all the time, because he would say at the end of the show, I'm Don LaFontaine.
Yeah. It's like slipped in there. It's like Indiana Jones' hat, like right at the end. He just gets it right out the end under the door,
It's like his version of a rap song. His version of a rap song where he's like, I'm going to put it at the end though.
Yeah, we got the best trailers.
The best.
Yeah, if Jason Derulo, if somebody somehow said to him, we're going to reverse what you've done. But yeah, I mean, he literally, the movie guy voice for the majority of our lives was the one hosting this thing. But later on, though, in season 4, it would change over to Campbell Lane, who, he's a much softer, gentler voice, It doesn't feel nearly as creepy with him. Because Campbell Lane clearly did not smoke nearly as many cigarettes as Don LaFontaine did.
Payback. This time, it's for real.
And Campbell Lane actually starred in an episode of the show. That's what's kind of funny about him. He was in an episode and then ends up as the narrator for season 4. But all right, guys, so enough of the technical shit. I think it's time we dive into exactly what constitutes beyond belief. Nate, do you want to take us through, from what you remember, like what the format of the show is? How is it presented?
Well, you got to start with, have you ever walked out of a mall into a huge parking area and realized you'd forgotten when you parked your car? It's as simple as that.
Would you display this as a trophy? Do you have a pet? Do you have a sweet tooth? Do you believe in the power of a curse?
Have you had your hearing tested lately?
Planning a trip soon? Can you remember the tallest man you've ever seen?
Do you love to go a-wandering beneath a clear blue sky?
Actually, what you need to think about is back during the mid-90s, Fox was into these real weird... X-Files was around, and they really played into the supernatural. That was something that was always... They did the Secret of Al Capone's vaults once. That was all like Fox coverage. It was about thrilling people with things they didn't know. And to be fair, most of those things were, I'm going to say, lowbrow productions. That's just what... And then Fox got that kind of reputation. So something like this, I think when it first aired, I don't know that they intended it to last anything more than maybe one season. Just because people would think this is really preposterous. But when you get down to the basics on it, there are a lot of interesting stories done through the research of author Robert Trelins. And so he actually had quite a storied history himself. He's kind of a man of a lot of different things. So I looked at it. I didn't know it at the time. I always wondered, what kind of lunatic is writing all these stories? And they can't possibly be true. I just pictured this guy back in the 1960s and 70s going around, or 80s even, going around... Because I think he wrote this back sometime in the 1960s. It was based on something called Strange Events Beyond Human Understanding. And so I got the feeling that I just see him at these diners where he's driving some 60s car from town to town collecting stories from nutcases. And them going, well, it's got to be true because they told me it was true.
Well, and that's what makes it interesting, though, is because Beyond Belief presents you 5 tales that you're going to hear about each evening, and you don't know which ones are fact or which ones are fiction until the very end. And throughout it, though, each time you hear an explanation, it's not every single story, but when they tell you that something was fact, sometimes they go, yeah, this story was fact, in a detailed story by author Robert Trelins. And the crazy part about that was, in some episodes, they'll say that, and then they offer no explanation. It's like, yep, this absolutely crazy fact is true by author Robert Trelins. And so, you hear that a couple times, and you go, who the hell is this man? Yeah. And so, they definitely... They talk him up a decent amount, but that was something I never looked into either because, once again, remember, Joe, Nate, this was 1997.
There's no way of fact checking this stuff without making many phone calls that you don't have that time for.
Yeah. There wasn't enough communication yet in our society to track down a liar. I don't know if you guys even knew this. His name wasn't even Robert Tralins. It was Sandor Robert Tralins.
Yes.
This guy even had like
name off.
Oh yeah, no, he's got like a Zophar type name going on with him. Like he's got.
He could have been the villain in Ghostbusters with that kind of name.
I feel like this was like Dan Aykroyd, but years before his time. Like this is the original.
Sandor Robert Tralin sounds like an authentic, wacko. He really does, just in name alone. But the reality was he was a science fiction and pulp magazine author. He was out there making some just bizarre stuff in the '60s, scaring people down there in southern Florida. And according to the notes and the data on him, the guy supposedly created over 250 different books under the very unassuming name of Sean O'Shea, which doesn't sound nearly as cultish as Sandor Robert Tralins. But for a guy who made that many books, Joe, I have to wonder, how does that stay quiet for that long?
Well, I mean, even with a name like Scott O'Shea, like, do you trust that guy, or is he just someone at the corner of an Irish pub, just hammered, just saying whatever sounds fun?
Well, it's not. He has to stay sober. I mean, after all, this guy, he's the one taking the stories from people. But I mean, apparently he created this James Bond like character named Jack Lund, and that was like the majority of the books that he would write about. But he also was very popular, and this is what Nate's probably trying to get into, is he had an infatuation with lesbian literature. He was all about writing about women for women who were into women.
He had a couple of adult books back in his early days before he got into telling odd stories. I mean, those were odd enough as they were. His work, Pleasure Was My Business, probably was an all-time classic that no one ever heard about.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, you know what? He made popular the idea of the infatuation with statues, otherwise
statue love, baby.
Statue love. He also made popular, Joe, a term that's called frottage, which is the act of vigorous crotch rubbing.
Vigorous. It's sad I knew what that meant before you mentioned it. I didn't have to look that up.
I mean, Sandor Robert Tralins, he was writing the kind of stuff that you'd have to brush your teeth after you read it. I mean, he's just... I mean, we're talking... and I'm not trying to shame what he's doing here, but I mean,
maybe a little bit. This sounds like a guy who goes on Omegle, like, just trying to meet women and say, hey, so I've wrote some weird erotic fiction. You okay with talking about this or just listening for a while? And I say this from, like, secondhand experience from a friend who just had that happen to her. And she sat around for a while until it got weird, and then she just left. But this sounds like it's up his alley.
I feel like he resembled, and I never got to hear the man talk, but he probably, personality-wise, was a lot like Will Ferrell in The Hot Tub. Making... I don't know that for certain, but that's just kind of the person that comes to mind for me.
Yeah, we heard the sound of native drums. Was it in our hearts or minds? We don't know.
Or perhaps our grinds.
But prolific, no matter what. He did a lot of different things.
Well, Robert Tralins, when you see a photo of him, you look at this guy, and he kind of looks like a cousin of Al Capone. Like he was the Capone that didn't get into organized crime, right? He just looked at a statue too many times and thought some pretty crazy things about them, and then began rubbing his crotch, furiously.
Absolutely furiously.
To Nate's point, this guy had a very strong science fiction background. And for some reason, Joe, he was rubbing elbows with L. Ron Hubbard. I mean, literally foundations of Scientology here. I mean, this show feels like it's funded by a cult already from the get-go.
Are you sure that's what they were rubbing together? Because this sounds like some frottage to me.
You know what? I'm happy we're popularizing the term frottage tonight because... if I had known that term, Nate, if you had known that term in 1997, we would have never stopped talking about it.
No, we brought it up all the time.
Yeah, like just having dinner with our folks, we'd just bring up frottage, and they would have no idea what we're talking about. But either way, the Strange Events Beyond Human Understanding that Nate talks about, 1966 book, it actually was adapted to CBS in 1992 under what's called Miracle and Other Wonders, which I can understand why that failed. That doesn't really catch the,
No, it's trying to be heartwarming. We don't need that. Don't need heartwarming. No.
We need abusive is what we need.
Yes.
Well, speaking of abusive, because I definitely want to get into the show, there's one last note about Sander Robert Tralins we should cover, which is he sued ABC, the FCC, and the NCAA because he believed that the northern states were being shown better quality football than the rest of the country.
It's a lawsuit nobody would bring today. Nobody would ever bring. We know that Southern football is now better. That's an artifact of the time.
Both in show quality and in actual football.
Exactly.
I mean, they're willing to sell it, Joe. I mean, down there in the South, they were pulling all kinds of weird things to get people to play football. We're talking cars, women, drugs, you name it. I mean,
have you noticed what big real estate agents have become? I mean,
Have you noticed what big stars real estate agents have become? Are you careful with your personal records? Does your computer ever seem to have a mind of its own? Have you ever visited a Chinatown section in a major city? Have you ever visited a flea market?
At this point, there's two people I'm concerned with, Nate, and it is the hosts of this show, because there is a very big difference between the two of them.
Sure.
When it comes to James Brolin, guys, Joe, I'll let you take this one first. What do you notice about James Brolin, his energy? Like, what does James Brolin do for you as the host in season 1?
So, if you were to continue season 1, as in, like, someone were to equate season 1 as perhaps the Snyder Cut that they wanted to resume and keep going, it's because they needed something to fall asleep to at night, and they just needed Brolin's just sweet, sweet voice of telling tales that perhaps are true, perhaps they're not. We're just happy you're here. Maybe.
I think they were going for something. He has that detective quality to him. You throw a trench coat on him, and he's got a very sort of investigator type look. And I think that's probably what they thought they needed to begin with. And then when he dropped, I don't know exactly the circumstances. Maybe Mark knows the circumstances about why he left. But when they went in it, I think that Jonathan Frakes, naturally, and also character that he played, is naturally mischievous, which and devious and deceptive, and I think that plays into better in what they're trying to do on the show.
It really does, and Nate, I agree with you with that. This kind of like the idea that maybe the detective like look and feel, because you are trying to figure out what's real, what's not. But the man just didn't have like the Stack Attack presence, so it wasn't quite the same as things of, I would say, similar genre like Unsolved Mysteries. Well, obviously Unsolved Mysteries is crime, and all of them happened. It's still that idea of you have a host who's got like this kind of like dark, creepy setting around him. Not necessarily dark, creepy music. You've got reenactments of the stuff. But, I feel like they leaned too hard the detective thing, and they needed kind of the silliness and the whimsy of what was going on for the show to work.
Well, I don't think you can get a Robert Stack. I don't think you want a Robert Stack for a show like it'd be too serious. The kids couldn't watch it.
No. And I think the point of Brolin is that he reminds you of like an old man that's standing there at like a car crash that everybody's looking at, and just kind of like going, "Oh man, what happened here?" He's got the hands in his pockets kind of thing. He's easily got a Werther's original in the chamber, and I don't hate him, by the way. I don't hate James Brolin for what he did, but the format under him was a little bit different, where he actually told you a story during one portion of the episode, as opposed to just having the depictions, and based on how he tells the story, you're supposed to hopefully figure it out whether it's true or false. And to be honest with you, with his depiction of things, it always felt like to me he didn't quite buy into what he was doing. Like there was always a part of me where he delivers like a pun, for example. And he's like cringing. You can see it on his face. If you watch this season 1 of the show, he'll deliver a pun, and then he's kind of like, did I just do that? Like, man, that's a problem. Yeah. That Jonathan Frakes does not suffer from at all.
No, you embrace the pun. Don't be a coward.
God, the amount of puns on this show after he takes over was just through the roof. I mean, God, the amount of puns that Jonathan Frakes is capable of. There are supercuts of like every single one of them. You guys have already pointed out his intros, which, I mean, good Lord, the amount of ADHD power behind the amount of questions this guy asks. I mean,
those are some of my favorite supercuts on the internet. Is just all the questions that Jonathan Frakes just says as the show starts.
If we could step back to Josh Brolin sorry, not Josh Brolin.
Oh yeah, James
Brolin. We can
Papa
step back
Brolin.
to James Brolin for a minute. You got to remember that the first season was real low budget looking too. Mm-hmm. When he was on it, there was a lot more of him talking and a lot less of the reenactments. And it wasn't until it was picked up again that you started to see better reenactments. So they were pretty bad. I don't know if you've gone back and watched all of them, but
yeah, you're asking a lot of an actor to jump out there on an LA-based studio and hope for the best, because they did do something in season 1 they'd carry through to other ones where they would actually bring in the props that you would see from the reenactments, and they'd be there in the studio, with the host. Which I always thought was a cool connection, because for TV, I just assume that what you see as like the actor's part is just in Canada for some reason. I just always assume that. And
I mean, especially in the modern world, it's a safe assumption.
Yeah. Well, hey, to that point, Joe, this is something we'll get to later. The actors in this show, we'll get there. But for now, when Frakes takes over, I mean, guys, what were your impressions of I mean, obviously the show got more money, but let's start with Joe. Joe, when Jonathan Frakes takes over, what do you notice immediately? How is the show different?
I mean, one, the obvious is that there's more energy there. Frakes' delivery is very much like, I don't know, like anything, for lack of better things to compare it to, is Riker. And Riker does kind of command the attention towards him whenever he's on the screen. So even if it's something like kind of silly, you're still intrigued because it's being said and delivered with this booming voice that Jonathan Frakes has. And like Nate said, like on top of that, like you just have better image quality. It just seems like it's more crisp when you're watching Frakes from the cameras they're using on him. The set does not look as run down, so you have a more upbeat, more booming voice coming at you. You have just a better looking set. You're more hooked from the get-go. You actually want to stick around to make sure you have the stories, in which, again, bad phrasing by me, because, again, we don't hate James Brolin. No. You're definitely more excited. This feels more, especially like, because Frakes, like you said, he doesn't run through the first story or one story with you, so it doesn't have that story time feel. It is, I'm going to set up the mystery, ask you a question, make you think, and then just go right into the reenactment.
Yeah. I mean, every time I hear someone ask me, "Do you love to go a wandering beneath a clear blue sky?"
Do you love to go a wandering beneath a clear blue sky? Ever gone mountain biking? What do you want to be when you grow up? What's the right tip? Have you called a plumber to your home lately? How superstitious are you? How much money would it take to make you spend a night in a cemetery?
I'm taken back in time, you know? And Nate and I have asked many times, does your computer ever seem to have a mind of its own?
Does your computer ever seem to have a mind of its own? Have you ever visited a Chinatown section in a major city? Have you ever visited a flea market? Have you ever visited a truck stop? Did you ever have a job as a waiter? Have you noticed how many successful restaurants are theme-based these days? Have you ever had the desire to write your initials in wet cement?
I mean, these are things, Joe, they just come up naturally, and they always pop up in Beyond Belief, you know? Like, have you ever visited a flea market? I mean, all these things, we didn't know how creepy they could be.
One thing with Jonathan Frakes, too, is that I don't think in the popular media he was known for much else than Star Trek. And as someone that's seen all 7 seasons in every movie and Picard, not that anyone was out during the time, I think the series run ended in 94. Mm-hmm. So he had a couple of years to mill around, and they made the movies and all of that. I think he was involved in some of that. His character, I think, from what I've read, him personally, I think his character as Riker matched most closely to his own personality than compared to some of the other ones, because Picard on the show was always very stoic, when the real Patrick Stewart is not that at all. They were constantly cracking jokes and trying to get him to act more seriously. So Jonathan Frakes is a prankster, I think, by nature. And so when you see him on the show, his face when he says something, it's like he's going to laugh afterwards. Like he can't hide his excitement for how weird or fake or something is. Like he really enjoys tricking you. And I don't have any access to outtakes or anything. I've never seen anything like that about the show. But I would imagine he had a good time filming this. And there's probably interviews out there that talk to him about this fact. And if I ever saw him at a convention, I'm sure that's what I would ask him about. Everyone would come up and ask him about Star Trek. I would ask him, let's talk about something important.
Let's talk about your shit-eating grin after every pun you deliver on Beyond Belief, because it's okay. It's not every single pun, but I mean the way that the smile it jumps out of his face, Joe. That when he gives that, I mean, but for me, I mean, I'm just sitting there, and as I rewatched a lot of it, because most of it's on YouTube now, you can watch the whole series. But I mean, the one that made me crack up was when he goes, have you ever had the desire to write your initials in wet cement? And I'm just I'm like, you know what, Jonathan? I have. I've wanted to do that. I haven't done it before. I put my hand in cement, but I've never had the desire to write my initials in it though. But there's something about that, just the fact that he's always asking these questions, and typically they'll lead in with like a piece of artwork that's meant to be kind of mind bending, which you know, back in the 90s probably felt provocative in a sense. You know, nowadays we're like, okay, so you just made one image shitty enough to look like two different images. Yep. But he would always present this artifact to you, and I just always found that crazy. But
they tried to associate it with mind tricks, so it'd be like the old lady and the rabbit,
yes,
or something that spins around to show you the image of something that's the way it's supposed to be, where it's one thing versus another, or make something invisible. I think he referenced magicians a few times because some of the episodes talked about that. There was just a lot in there. They touched on so many different areas of things that people find mysterious. And again, now you get on the internet, we're 30 years later almost into this, and there just isn't anything mysterious anymore because everything gets leaked. Every trick that someone does in a magic show is revealed. You know, the magician's code or whatever has been broken, I'm sure how many times now. And I'm not going to say there aren't mysteries out there, but they come out of places that can still keep secrets, which are not generally in this country.
That's all still like thanks to Fox shooting that and the Magician's Secrets. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Fox was spilling the tea on Magician's Secrets right around the same era. But, you know, something about this show that I think was really oddly successful was that it managed to pull in the audience to make you feel like you weren't just watching something. Because to Nate's point, you see these images that, like, I keep saying provocative because you have to remember how prude we were back in the 90s. And so seeing some of these bizarre objects and stuff like that, and some of the episodes that like dive into witchcraft and some of these occult-based things, it almost made you feel like you were watching something that you weren't supposed to be watching, right? Mm-hmm. And Joe, I want to ask you a question about, you know, how you felt as a viewer participating in guessing which segments were real, which ones were fake. like what did you feel like as a kid watching this kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, it's like one of these things that was kind of exciting to do, right? Because again, like you have no idea of fact checking any of this in the moment. You can't quickly pull out your phone, go onto Google, and then just type in, "Hey, did an airplane really take off by itself?" And it was the same one that a father like flew years ago and died in, and try and find something, or you pull up Snopes and figure out if this is true or not. So it is an in-home event at this point, right? You're watching it with your family. I know my brother and I would watch this pretty regularly when it came on, which I say regularly with an asterisk because that's part of the issue with the show. We'll get to in a bit. But it was just fun to be like watching, like no, this one's full of shit. There's no way this happened. So that's part of the fun of it, is just engaging with the show while also engaging with the people around you. It's I don't want to say it's kind of like, you know, the Fallon like thing where it's like don't bring people on and just interview them, like bring them on and have fun with them, make them interact with you in some other capacity, and that's what the show did. It gave you something to do as well as watch while you were there. So that's something I'll always remember from this, is just watching it with family. And my dad said everything was fake, which is just funny. He's like, "No, it's fake. That wouldn't happen." I'm like, well, I don't know.
I mean, you're almost 50% right doing that. You're 50% right on us doing that anyways. Not always, though. Mm-hmm. They mixed up the pattern, too.
He'd break even on it.
They did mix up the pattern. I mean, you were guaranteed at least one real and one fake, per episode. So you at least had that. But yeah, the balance of sometimes you'd get 4 real and 1 fake. Sometimes you'd get 4 fake and 1 real. Although, actually, no. I think it was never more than 2. But either way, you would get a different balance to Nate's point. And, yeah, Joe, the sad reality with Fox, they fuck up releasing shows.
So much.
This was another one of those shows that kind of suffered the same effect as Firefly, where there was a sporadic airing of episodes. We had some shows that were weeks apart, and the 4th season had a 2-year delay. I mean, we're talking a TV show with a 2-year delay that wasn't impacted by COVID. I mean, it just didn't make any sense. And by that point, Don LaFontaine, he's replaced. We've got Campbell Lane now as the narrator. But one of the most noticeable changes between like seasons 3 and 4, Nate might remember this one because I think him and I pointed at the TV. When they do the part in between the reveals of the fact or fiction, they have these swirling lights, and you hear kind of like this, and they change that. Yeah, they changed that in season 4, where it's like it doesn't sound like that anymore. I don't know why they did that, but do you guys remember that, like, just that little tweak effect?
Yeah. I'll tell you, one thing to consider, too, at that time was this is what I'm going to call part of Fox's undercard of shows. This was not like a feature production. This was intended to be filler trash, I think, and it ended up being, it's one of those things we remember because we liked it, and I think, and so, as Marcus says here, you get a couple years in between. We didn't know, you didn't have the chance to go watch things in order. There was no DVD collection of Beyond Belief. And so these things would just be on. And it was on the night of the week when we're going to be at home anyways.
Well, I mean, what were we doing?
We weren't going to do anything. Yeah, and I think that's why so many people remember it, because it's like what people used to sit around and watch TV. That was their Friday and Saturday night when they were our age. There's not all this other stuff to do. People weren't living like people do now. This is what you did as a family. It was something that was like go watch Little Fox.
It was in front of the X-Files for a little bit there. So, I mean, there's a lot of stragglers just doing that. But, I mean, to Joe's point and yours, it did become a family event for a lot of people. And I think the best part about it was, out of the 239 stories that were told throughout the first 48 episodes, about 139 of them were declared as factual. So that's what I think was the crazy part about guessing which ones were real and which ones weren't fact. At the end of it all, it was still about a 50-50 balance as far as like what was real, what was fake. And I don't know, the part that I actually take issues with here, guys, was the fact we put so much trust in Sandra Robert Tralins. Because we've already kind of alluded to it a little bit. Why should we believe Tralins' accounts of these supernatural events that are supposedly happening? I mean, mannequins moving on their own overnight at a clothing store. I mean, seriously, Nate, why should we trust this eyewitness testimony that happened in like the 60s, 70s? Like, why should we go ahead with that?
Again, sometimes source material, when you pull it out of an age when people still believed in weird things or collect things, there's nobody there left to validate this stuff. And when you're talking about what I'm going to call, I wouldn't say it was entertaining, but a largely second-rate undercard show for Fox, I don't think anybody was really considering the veracity of any of these stories. It's just made for interesting television to say that somebody verified, that guy down the street is going to say that, yes, this happened. That's all that we needed. We just needed to, we wanted to be able to guess. And if there was anything educated behind it being true or false, that's all we really wanted to do. We had nothing vested in it being true or false anyway. We just wanted to know. And they wrote these stories to make it seem, these little reenactments, they wrote them all so that some of them would seem more convincing or less convincing, even though they weren't. They were trying to deceive you the entire time. And of course, he addressed that, I think, almost every single episode in some way. I mean, I don't know if you guys have any, maybe this is a good lead-in. Do you guys have any favorite episodes of this show?
Oh, come on.
Do you guys have one that really, like, for me, it's always like the Remember Pearl Harbor. I don't know if you remember that one. It's like 2 days before Pearl Harbor. It's like at this school and someone's in spray painting Remember Pearl Harbor all over the school. And then it turns out, I don't know if you guys know, that there is a continuation of this. Years later, a guy came out and said that it was him doing it. that it was that he had been spray painting all around the school because it was an answer on a test that everybody couldn't remember. So he was trying to spray paint it in places that people remembered. So it actually was a true story. And I think that that's kind of part of what the play is in here, is that the things that seemed a little more outlandish and supernatural, we have no way of applying modern logic to figure out how any of these things actually happen. That's the thing, is we've taken so much mystery out of our world that a lot of the legends that we tell come out of stories that are unprovable now. And so many of these are out of that period as well. Some of these are 80, 90-year-old stories, or at least the part of the story that they're pulling the fact from is unprovable. But I think in the long run, none of us really cared. Yeah. And maybe you guys, no one really cared. It was just about, we wanted to know which one might have come from the stories and which ones. Because usually there's a couple of them where you can tell there's a more narrative set up to it. It's less likely to be written, and it's too strange.
Well, I think because of the fact that it's the era of the X-Files, I think a lot of us had Fox-Mulder syndrome, which was we wanted to believe. And I mean, there was the one story about the author who suddenly starts hearing voices in his office, and they're in this new house, and he opens a secret passageway behind the bookshelf in the office, and suddenly he's hearing this little girl's voice and finds her, buried in the house. She's in this little subsection. And apparently that was a true story. An author actually found the body of a deceased girl that had long been there in this house, and nobody else had ever discovered it. So stuff like that, when they say it's true, nowadays we'd want to look that up. But for me, the one that I thought was actually one of the craziest ones, Nate, was The Wrestler, where Terry Funk from the good old WWF days is supposedly fighting a dead wrestling partner.
A dead guy, yeah. It's messed up.
Which was so messed up. But that one I think was actually fiction. That one was.
I think it was fiction too.
That was fiction. Yeah.
Been dead for 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like.
Yeah. But Joe, I mean, hey, we don't want to leave you out. I mean, did you have any favorite facts or fictions here?
Well, I don't know who wouldn't, after watching the show, and have at least something that sticks out in your mind is what you'd like to, and especially in a show like Nate saying that it's like, definitely not a top card show. It's kind of the equivalent of like trash TV at the time. Like now it's reality stuff, and now back then this is what it was. It was your trash TV, and you're always looking for Fox's new twisted show. And this could have been it. So, but it wasn't. But one of my favorite ones, because it was one where like you kind of saw through what was happening in the story as it went. It was a story about a woman who had a revolver. She was terrified of a home invasion, and she religiously checked the revolver to make sure it would work, and her husband swore up and down it would work and it'd be fine. But she keeps having this dream where an intruder's in and she's firing the revolver over and over again, and it's not firing, and then she gets hit by the intruder, and that's when she wakes up. And then you get to a point where you find out, the husband goes away. Are you sure you want me to go? You're having the dream, all this stuff. And then she hears something in the house. She takes the gun. She fires the revolver over and over again. Lo and behold, it will not shoot. Nothing's leaving the barrel. And then it turns out it's her son walking up the stairs. And therefore, it was something good that intervened. And that's why it didn't happen. And that's where it should have stopped. And that would have been just fine. It's like, it's some sort of divine intervention. This is great. But the story continues is that when the son goes up to embrace mom and to try and calm the fears, she drops the gun and it proceeds to fire every time it hits a step and hits an intruder who was there the whole time. It's like, no, you went too far. You flew too close to the sun. No one's buying it. I don't even remember if it's true or not. I just remember that the story was ridiculous.
There was one, I believe it's called Where Have All the Heroes Gone, which was playing off of Where Have All the Cowboys Gone at the same time, where the ghost of this Western actor, they're selling off his estate once he's passed away, and these guys walk in there and supposedly get approached by him in full cowboy outfit, as they're trying to steal stuff from this estate. And apparently that one was a true story somehow. And it's like, as I'm sitting there going like, come on, guys, as much as I want to believe this one, it's not quite getting there for me. But there's a hidden story within this show that I think both of you guys are going to appreciate, which is just the pure amount of actors that are on this that were in a bunch of other things that we were watching at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, do you guys have a couple that you can think of? Because I've got plenty that I can read off here.
A lot of them were like secondary characters and things too. But there was a couple of bigger ones. I'm happy. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Because I will read them off rapidly. We have Ian. Okay, we have Ian Abercrombie in the segment called The Mummy, who is playing the character of Emil that you would know as Mr. Pitt from Seinfeld.
Yes.
We have Paul Gleason, who is in the Creepy Comics segment, playing the character of Kip Sherman. Richard Vernon from The Breakfast Club, just dishing out detentions left and right. This one's a little bit deeper. Dave Florek from the segment called The Red Line. He was playing the character of Tony Ferris. You guys would recognize him as the cop that stops the Ghostbusters in Ghostbusters 2 in the middle of the street. It's the same guy. Yeah. We called the phone line company. We checked. So give us another one. That guy. I'm like sitting there pointing at the TV going like, I know this dude. Where is he from? Okay, there's a couple more though. That episode I mentioned about Where Have All the Heroes Gone? There was Evan Jones, who plays Johnny Pope, who plays Wretch in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. He's one of the guys who's pouring the drinks on Groot. I just happened to notice him because I'm like sitting there going, that guy's nose is so familiar. I know I've seen it somewhere. But I'll read off a couple more. Obviously, we talked about Terry Funk. Nate, This one's for you. Don Perry from the segment called The Prescription as Everett Spencer was Earl Milford from Arrested Development.
Earl Milford. Oh.
Yeah. He's the
It
one.
wasn't pleasant.
No, yeah. They treat us badly.
Us badly.
He was he's actually a pharmacist who suddenly realizes they sent the wrong prescription to a person and prevents them from dying because he makes a sudden phone call. But there are a couple more that I want to just give you guys quickly.
Wasn't Titus on there?
Titus was on there. Yes. Titus, the comedian that we all saw
Richard
probably
Titus.
the same Fox lineup, Richard Titus. This one's a little lesser known. Felton Perry, who played the captain in Dumb and Dumber, Detective Dale. Do you guys remember him? He was he's the guy who says, get your hands up right at the very end of Dumb and Dumber. He just appears in one episode. And then this is another Ghostbusters tie-in. Michael Ensign, who plays Donald T. Blanchard in the Ghost Visitor episode in season 2, literally the hotel manager from Ghostbusters. Of the segment. He shows up in here.
That guy's been in a lot of things, though. He was also in. He was in something else I just saw recently. Let's think about it.
The last two, and I promise I'll stop after this. In the episode called The Fine Line, Jewel State plays twins.
Yes.
Where they have this telepathic connection, and they can feel pain, they can hear music that the other one's playing, all kinds of weird stuff. And she actually does a good job. It's not bad acting. It's actually a pretty well acted episode. But the one that I think will resonate the most with you, Joe, Samantha Ferris was in the segment called The Grave, where her and her lover caused the death of her husband. They set him up, and in her attempt to find forgiveness in this episode, the ex-husband takes control of farm equipment and literally crushes her and her lover dead in the cemetery.
Okay, all right. Well, Sally Poe does not get away.
No, she does not. But Samantha Ferris was doing a damn good job. She was doing the best she could with that script. So, yeah. So anyway, I watched easily at least 40 episodes out of the 48. And as I'm sitting here watching them, it's like, oh my God, I recognize that actor. Where is that person from? What is their name? And there's even more that I didn't mention. But guys, I don't want to necessarily get too long in the tooth with this. But what I would like to ask both of you individually, what do you think the impact of Beyond Belief Fact or Fiction is, 30 years later? Nate, I'll let you have the floor first.
I almost going to take a minute here to kind of think about this. But I think for children of that age, it led us to be a little bit more skeptical. But I think people, it comes from a simpler time. It really does come from a simpler time. And we appreciate that just because there's nothing like it. And that's why even now, going back to watch it again, I think you've forgotten which ones are true or false. That's not the part you care about. You cared about the cheesy reenactments, the little side things. So you can watch this again and again and again. So as far as impact is concerned, it's just something that everybody remembers. It was one of those weird. There's so many, like, it's like watching a Goofy movie growing up. And we've talked about that before, where at the time everyone was talking Lion King and Lion King. And you look at it now and go, yeah, that was a cheesy Disney fest, but I wanted something gritty. And I think that this is one of those things. Everyone remembers the X-Files, too, for what it was. And there's a healthy appreciation. There was continuations of that. This, on the other hand, was something that everyone goes, I remember it, and I liked it, but it wasn't like a fandom. It was just something that everybody liked. And there are shows that are like that, because people always want to talk about, oh, I'm a big fan of this, big fan of this. If they were to see on your Facebook profile you're a fan of Beyond Belief, they're going to start asking questions. Like, it's the oddity in your grouping, and it's not really that odd. I think most people from that era had seen a couple of those episodes. So it's kind of in that, and it's couched in that series of things to where everybody has like a favorite moment out of it. Everyone remembers certain portions of it, but it just doesn't have the kind of weird following that other things have, because it's not intended to be a fandom type show. So,
would your friends be asking questions like, how superstitious are you? Or how much money would it take to make you spend a night in a cemetery? I think I already asked that one once.
Have you ridden a bicycle?
Yeah. Have you called a plumber to your home lately? You know, that's how you know you've got a fan. Mm-hmm. What's the right tip? I mean, just all those things. You know, what do you want to be when you grow up?
It leaves me hope in my life that someday, you know, in my life, if my wife that appreciates birds, you know, dies prematurely, that a woman will come up to my door again, and then I'll marry her as well, like it happened in that one episode. So, you know, it's something like that. It's just some of these things where it's just, you and I remember these, I think, because there's a few episodes that really stuck out to us, and I think people remember moments of them. But again, I have fun watching them again because I don't remember the endings. And I won't remember the endings again in 20 years either, because I'm not going to watch this. Shows like this, when there's a spoiler type ending to the end of it, you watch it, you appreciate it in the moment. But unlike Unsolved Mysteries, where there's cases where we've seen over and over, because they kept rehashing it every episode. Mm-hmm. So you would have on Unsolved Mysteries where it was like, oh, we've got an update. Oh, there's been an update. Or they went and updated the original episode rerun. With this one, not at all. It's like a spoiler for something. You got your satisfaction. You move on. And I don't know if there's anything even, I think with, like, they have Unsolved Mysteries, like the new rehash on Netflix.
Yeah.
It's lost a little bit of that mystique as well because there's no resolution. Every one of these has a resolution. It's either true or, false or hopefully true, Robert Traylon's Sandor. Which we don't really know, and we're never going to know. But you can be right or wrong, and that's what really mattered.
Yeah, and I think a big part of the show's impact, and I like that you brought up that Netflix had brought back and rebooted like Unsolved Mysteries, because Unsolved Mysteries, even if you don't have that resolution to what's going on, like, it kind of is timeless in the fact that the concept of it just will always work, right? Is that there's always going to be some sort of fascination in the unknown and being afraid of it and trying to solve something that's left unsaid. So I think you can keep bringing that back. Whereas this, you can't bring back. You do this again in the modern day, it doesn't work. Its impact is, it's our thing to me. It's rushing home before the streetlights come on. It's drinking water from a garden hose, driving a manual car, listening to a Walkman. It's a thing that was a product of our generation, and it worked for us, and we will think fondly back on it because it was ours, and we know it's never going to work again. And it doesn't have to work again. We can be happy that we had it for what it was and when we had it, and just leave it there.
I think the closest thing you can even get to it is components of other shows. You talk about something like a House, where the mystery is like there's people that you could watch at different levels. There were actually like several diseases on that show where I knew the disease because I'd read about some sort of weird circumstance at some point in my life. I was really fascinated with it. Wikipedia train you go down, and it's kind of like with that going. If you watched it only for that, you do have that mystery because at the end you figure out what it is. But they didn't lead with that in the show. This show did lead with that. It's figure out the mystery because it was something anyone could access. Anyone can make a guess. You don't need any special knowledge here.
Well, and I think that's what really made this a bit of a phenomena in the late 90s, right? It was the idea that the audience member was pulled into something that they could participate in that didn't require a cell phone. It didn't require any kind of internet connection. We were all doing the same things in our living rooms. Once again, because we had nothing else to do. None of us had driver's licenses yet. Mm-hmm. But it was something that managed to do that. It was virality before virality really has a chance to spread with technology. And yeah, we were able to talk about it, but only because some of us were in on that weird part of it, because not everybody's parents let them watch the X-Files. Not everybody's parents let them watch Sightings, America's Most Wanted, all those weird things in that area. So I think that was what was really the biggest part for me, was that I felt like I was participating in something that was weird. It was dark. It was just a little bit strange. And it was a little bit outside of what most normal people would have been watching. So for me, that was always going to be the legacy of this show.
Well, and not all of the stories ended well either. It's almost, in that way, it kind of relates back to maybe like The Outer Limits.
Yeah.
Where there were Outer Limits stories where some of them were really uplifting at the end, and some of them horrify you. Like that, like watching the guy get shot at the end of that episode that was about Gettysburg or something, where you're just, I can't believe they'll let that happen. And then the worst part is that you watch it, and you get that feeling, and then you're hoping at the end, like, let's just hope that one isn't true. And then he drops it on you. That was fact. That happened. And you're like, oh, God. And then they show that little freeze frame at the end where it drops fact across in a diagonal. And you're like, oh, God. That's awful.
I was really thankful that the one where the animatronic gorilla comes to life wasn't fact, because, man, when that one happens, like the gorilla comes to life, it's like shaking this like metal stairway this guy's on. And in that like moment of fear, though, you're still watching like B-movie acting. So this guy is like falling down the stairs, and you're like, you know what? I was scared for a moment, but now I'm laughing again. And that's the kind of power this show has. But you know what, Joe? It would feel a little too self-serving here to do like the normal, outro, looking for that perfect moment to slip that in there. And mostly because, for those of you that were listening at the very beginning, we're only going to be meeting up one last time for this show. We're going to have a finale for it if you've been looking at the social media stuff for this. But this is like the last official topic that we're covering for the Digital Dissection Podcast, which is a bit of a weird thing to say, Joe, but it just doesn't seem right to do the standard outro. I don't know what you think.
I would agree, because definitely the outro is us. Well, we're still going to thank you for sticking around with us as long as you have. And if this is your first episode, bad news for you. But it does feel odd to basically just say, hey, we hope you keep listening to us, and we hope to keep coming back season after season when we know this is it. So while we can't do the standard thing, I would like to thank everyone who's stuck with us this long, and to say that your support's always gone a long way. It really has, because like Mark and I and Nate, you've been in here long enough, and you keep coming back with us. You're on a few times a season, so we've always appreciated that. So to have people keep coming back to listening to us and just hear us talk about the things we love for so long, when again this was just meant to be something like we just thought was just us like being able to hang out, since we weren't dressing up as Ghostbusters anymore. So for giving us a space to do that and interact with us along the way, it's like you can't put a price tag on that. It's just felt incredible.
I mean, it's been an incredible experience, and when we decided to wrap everything up, it felt like the timing was right, but it also gave me the opportunity to look back at a lot of things that I was thankful for. And one of the things I'm the most thankful for is that we got to do this at a time where it was impossible to be around family and friends. A lot of people started their shows, podcasts during COVID, and a lot of them ended it during COVID. We continue to press on, and so it's, we'll save some of this for the actual finale, but the core of it for me is gratitude, and I am very thankful for everyone who's listened and commented and liked, and every little piece of that kind of keeps us going. Joe and I made the joke a lot in the very beginning that our listener is going to be pissed, and there's more than one listener. There's folks on YouTube who've been there with us since the beginning. There's people on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. They've been there since the beginning. And when we started to announce it, their support was great. It was great to see those messages. But an extension of that is you, Nate. I mean, you've been a big part of this. I still fondly look back to being able to talk to Al Lowe with you, talking about Leisure Suit Larry and how a video game that we played many hours was only a megabyte in size. And so I'm incredibly thankful for being able to extend my friendship with Joe and to extend my brotherhood with you. These are things that we just don't get to do. People don't get to do this kind of stuff. And so for me, that's where a lot of my thoughts are right now.
I'm happy that we got to express a lot of our shared experiences, and you come to find out how many other people had a very similar experience. And I think when you talk about Al Lowe in particular, the thing that I thought was funniest was not only was he keenly aware that people stole his software and played it over the years without ever having paid for it, that it was played by people that never should have played that game at all during that time period. So I just thought that was always kind of funny that he knew about it, and I think he just kind of giggled in his mind because for a guy that was a school teacher.
Oh, yeah.
Still don't. He's got a sick sense of humor, that man.
Well, Nate, just because we've got you here, any takeaways you've had from the panels you've been on, the creators, actors, whatever, the folks that you got to interview. I mean, what was the experience for you like?
For me, in a couple of the cases, it was facing off against people that had insight into things I'd always wanted to know. And some of the questions we got to ask off the record, some of them we got to ask on the record. But my favorite moment across all of them was letting my daughter talk to the voice of Guybrush Threepwood, because she had played that back. I had done there's like a thing you can do to rip the content from the Steam version of the game and place those voices back in the original. And she used that to learn how to read during the COVID era. So to have the text on the screen and she could see the words, and it helped her learn how to read. But she was so familiar with Dominic Armato's voice that it kind of threw her for a whirl. She goes, it's weird. She's like, I remember. She still remembers it. She says, I got to talk to Guybrush. And to her, that was very, very special. And it was special to me to get to do that, to hear that. So, I mean, I'd known about it too. Obviously, we'd been hearing it since Monkey Island 3. So much so that when we went to go play it on an older computer, all that she said was, "Where's the voice at?" So,
yeah. I've got to say that's the stuff I think I'll take with me, until my mind gives out. Is just the amount of times you guys, all of us, got together to interview somebody that we all had a connection to in some way. And realize just how normal a conversation you can have, despite all of the grand things they're doing. To Nate's point, when it comes to Al Lowe, I want it's recorded, it's on record. He did absolve us for our sins because we donated to his PayPal.
Absolutely.
so he said we're absolved. It's on there. It's on the episode. You can
that's
find
how it works
stuff.
with the church, to my knowledge. You pay them, and they'll say, "Sure, you're fine. You go about doing your sins."
Man, I mean, it's the amount of times, Joe, I thought about, like, do we need to keep on dissecting one last time? I don't think we need to at this point. I mean, it's I think enough's been said already, and we've already.
I would say, what I would say, and this might be for your audience, is just to go, the dissecting never ends.
Yeah. I mean, couldn't have said it better myself. And yeah, I mean, Joe, if we ever do create merch for this program, which would be a really odd time to do it now.
Odd time to start it, yeah.
Maybe we could do that, put that on the back, is the dissection never ends.
That, and you can also, of course, on the front can be still official sponsor of the Digital Dissection Podcast, which is great. You do that now because you gave money and the podcast is dead. So what are you sponsoring now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or we could just end it like most songs that we grew up with that were oldies that just kept playing and they slowly fade out, and you're wondering, are they still talking?
Yep.
Is something still happening? Like what
So we're just going to turn this episode into Midwest Goodbye, where we thank everyone. We thanked everyone for coming like an hour ago, but we're just going to keep talking and keeping the conversation going.
You know what? I'm going to hit stop right now, and like you just fade it at the end.